Good morning and welcome to Big Bets on Campus Live. It's 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and this is the Week 7 college football betting preview presented by BetMGM. It's Separation Saturday, Super Saturday. It's the best Saturday of the college football season. I hope you're as excited as I am. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as always, is my Big Bets on Campus podcast co-host, Collin Wilson. And as always, our own college football insider, Mr. Brett McMurphy. We have a lot to get to today. We'll cover 4 marquee games in depth. We'll give our best bets in just a moment. Went 6-0 last week. Hopefully we can follow it up with another winning weekend. We will talk a little round robin underdog moneyline parlay. We'll bring in the universally loved Darren Ravel for a quick market report, and then give one final bet before we get out of here. Before we get started, I do want to remind everyone to make sure that you download the award-winning Action Network app. You can find all of our picks there, in addition to an abundance of data and actionable content for today's slate and beyond. And also, our sponsor, BetMGM, is a great offer for new users. Use the bonus code ACTION and get a risk-free wager up to $1,000. Again, that's the bonus code ACTION. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, let's get started here. But before we do, Collin, you're bringing the suit jacket in, and you're just showing me up as the host.
No, it's not really showing you up. It's more of Brett McMurphy has been extremely hot on this show. And by the way, if you ask him, he'll say go to the app where he's like perfect. And I thought that maybe I would raise my game from a fashion perspective so that I could reach Brett's level and how hot he is. Let's see if it works today.
Well, hopefully I can leverage some of the mojo that the Phillies have had. Wearing some Phillies gear today. So let's get started. Let's go right into our best bets. Let's take a look at the leaderboard, where everyone has been red hot the past 2 weeks. And Brett, I think 2 weeks ago, I asked you, I said, can you bring the real picks to the show? And ever since then, you've got nothing but winners. I can count on you're bringing the real winners today.
Real ones this week, Stuck. That's right, buddy.
All right, let's get things started. I'll kick it off. I'm going to go with Kent State plus 7.5. Start off with some action. Talking all these marquee games in a bit. Let's kick things off with action. I think that these two teams are closer than this spread implies, and it comes down to the schedules of both teams. If you include FCS teams, Toledo's strength of schedule is outside the top 130, whereas Kent State inside the top 30. They showed me some nice things. They eventually wore down against a brutal non-conference schedule on the road against some Power 5 teams, but I liked what I saw. And their run defense, they have a new defensive scheme. The run defense is significantly improved. It's been a huge issue the past couple of years. That's important against Toledo. Toledo's run D is excellent. Their front 7 is awesome, but they do have some holes in that secondary after losing 2 pros. So I think Kent State will have some opportunities to exploit the secondary, and I think they can keep this within one possession. So give me the golden flashes. Flash fast. Collin, where are you going?
Definitely not the last time we're going to talk about the MAC on the show as we get closer to Tuesday, Wednesday night action. But I am going to go with my best bet on Michigan State plus 7. It's gross. I understand hitting that submit button on the Spartans has not been well over the last month, but this number is completely inflated. Wisconsin fires their head coach. They go out and they hammer Northwestern. Michigan State, who is struggling, just got drilled by Ohio State. So it's a tough bet to make, but the Spartans have been dealing with injuries all season. Jaden Reed didn't make the trip to Washington. There have been key parts of the defense on the defensive line and in the secondary that have been missing. Both of them are expected back today. Safety Xavier Henderson, Jacob Slade on the defensive tackle. Both were dressed last week, didn't play, but they're expected to play today, and that's uber important into getting into Graham Mertz's face for Wisconsin. That's when he really struggles. And look, Wisconsin's new look offense, this throwing downfield on first down, we got motion involved. Like they've moved from 1950 to 2020. Thanks for joining the rest of the offenses in the world. But offensive coordinator Bobby Ingram put it all out there on tape. That has given Mel Tucker a week to diagnose that and design a defense for it. So I like Michigan State plus 7, a very inflated number that I think is about 4 points too high.
Yeah, I agree. Getting those 2 key defenders back will be huge for a reeling Sparty defense. Brett, where you going?
Well, Collin's doomed because he went with Graham Mertz earlier in the year. Now he's going against him. That never works out well. Stuck, you laid it all out with Toledo and Kent State. I like the under in that game. Last week's 52-32 win against Northern Illinois, very misleading. The 4 interceptions, 2 pick six. Look, it's not smart to take MAC unders, but nobody's ever accused me of being smart. I like under 62.5, Kent State and Toledo.
Yeah, Toledo last week put up a big number, but they had 2 pick sixes. Crazy. Their corner in the first 7 possessions had 4 picks and returned 2 for a touchdown. The same guy. Insane. All right, good stuff on the best bets. We have all these marquee games, and our best bets are from the MAC and Michigan State. That's very on brand. But let's kick things off with our first marquee game of the day. It's a noon kickoff. Penn State at Michigan. Michigan 7-point favorite here, over under. I think it's down to 49. I like the over here. I'm kind of doing some guesswork because we don't have a lot of great data points on either team. But I don't think the Michigan defense is as good as it was last year. If you look at who they've played, I mean, Iowa, Indiana, Colorado State, Hawaii. I mean, some of these teams that they've played have just been impoverished offenses. You can't really take much from a defensive standpoint. But when they did play Maryland put up 400 yards, 27 points. And same thing with Penn State. Really soft schedule so far outside of Purdue, the one offensive team with a pulse. They put up over 30, moved the ball well. So I think Penn State's going to play fast. They also haven't been showing much. They've been working freshmen in. So I'm going to go with the over here. A little bit of guesswork on how I think this will play out. Collin, where are you headed here?
Well, I am definitely taking Michigan -7. I've hit it a couple times this week, and there's just a massive difference in fundamentals in each one of these defenses. Michigan is the top team in the nation in tackling. Penn State is 114th, and the issue with the Nittany Lions stems from their defensive ends and from their safeties. And if you're going to try to keep contain on the defensive end, and you're going to try to tackle in space in the secondary and the second level against Blake Corum and JJ McCarthy, you're going to lose, especially with a tackle grade of 114th. The Michigan defense is getting pressure is going to get pressure on quarterback Sean Clifford, and he has regressed extremely in year 2 of having Mike Yurcich as his offensive coordinator. The Nittany Lions offensive line is now outside the top 50 in pass protection. Michigan's going to get pressure. Clifford's going to have some turnover-worthy plays. He hasn't had a big-time throw in this series in 2 years. And the one Penn State weapon that can cook is Nick Singleton on the ground. But I go back to what I said. Michigan's number 1 in tackling. That goes to DJ Turner, Gamon Green. This secondary is elite. They do not miss tackles whatsoever. No explosives for Penn State here. I like Michigan -7.
Michigan better be number 1 in tackles. They played a bunch of middle school teams so far. Brett, where are you going here?
This is the showdown, Stuck, the suit versus the sweatshirt. I'm going under here. This is pretty simple for me. Huge game for both teams, trying to emerge as a possible contender to Ohio State in the Big Ten East. So I think that makes for an even more conservative game plan, if that's even possible for a Big Ten game. Anyway, last 3 weeks in the Big Ten, excluding Ohio State games, the conference games are 11-3 to the under. I will back that trend to continue. Give me under for Penn State, Michigan.
Yeah, that's fair. That is a fear of mine with the overs, that these two teams come out and kind of just feel each other out. And, all of a sudden it's 3-0 at the end of the first and the over is shot. So you do bring up a fair point there. All right, let's move on to our second marquee game of the day. 3:30 Eastern, CBS. This is probably the most bet game of the day, or will be. Alabama travels to Tennessee. Alabama, the line's floating between the 7.5, 9-point favorite, over under 66.5. A lot of injury uncertainty throughout the week in this game. Bryce Young is expected to give it a go. Saban said he's going to see what it looks like in pregame warmups. But early in the week, I took Tennessee, still like Tennessee. There was a chance Bryce Young wouldn't play. And I think it's a massive drop-off between him and the backup, as we saw last week with Texas A&M, more of a running quarterback. And that's Tennessee's strength. But I still like Tennessee here because how are we just assuming that if Bryce Young plays, he's going to be 100% healthy? He didn't take all of the reps during the week. The timing might not be there. And it's an AC spread. I mean, one bad hit and he's out of the game all of a sudden. Maybe he's not as effective as throwing to Gibbs and, with his shoulder. We don't know if he can throw downfield as effectively. So with that uncertainty in this Tennessee offense, Still have some questions about the Alabama secondary. We don't have many data points, but even Texas A&M moved a little bit. We saw Quinn Ewers cook against them early. So yeah, I'm afraid of the Tennessee secondary here if Bryce Young is healthy, but I'll take the home dog Vols here, catching over a touchdown. Collin, I think you disagree.
Yeah, I disagree. I'll take Alabama. I don't care if it's 7. I don't care if it's 9. I don't care if it's 8. I don't care. I'm taking Alabama. Bryce Young is playing in this game, and that is much bigger news than just getting a Heisman Trophy winner back. It's the fact that this Tennessee defense is excellent against the rush, and they are god-awful against the pass. The Volunteers are 118th in coverage grading, near dead last in allowing explosive plays and standard downs. And keep in mind that the defensive resume for Tennessee was built against Ball State, Akron, and Nick Patty, the backup quarterback for Pitt. So if you think these numbers are bad, consider the resume that they put it up against. And so not only do I think Alabama is going to have a ton of success throwing the ball, it doesn't matter if it's over 20 yards or if it's mid-range or if it's at the line of scrimmage, Jahmyr Gibbs. Alabama is just going to have it on offense in this hostile crowd, which Saban always beats up-tempo teams. Ever since he lost in 2015 to Ole Miss, he has dominated up-tempo teams. So we'll see how that goes today. But on the other side of the ball, Will Anderson had 10 pressures against Texas A&M. I said a month ago on this show, I don't know where Will Anderson is. I don't know what's going on with the defensive line. They're here, and Alabama is playing elite defense led by Will Anderson, and that's going to get in Hendon Hooker's face and have him on the run. So roll tide today. I'll take Alabama at whatever number it closes at.
You forgot to mention what Tennessee's defense did against your LSU Tigers last week. Left that out. Brett, where are you going here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the big question is Bryce Young's health. I think a bigger question for me is Tennessee's defense. Against 4 FBS opponents this year, Florida's Anthony Richardson had a combined now, 489 yards passing. Against Tennessee, he threw for 453. Stuck, you mentioned LSU. Jaden Daniels, a week after throwing for 80 yards against Auburn, he threw for 300 against Tennessee. Look, I think both of you guys are right. Stuck, you like Tennessee. Collin, you're rolling with the tide. I agree with both of you. That's why I'm not going to worry about a late backdoor cover. I'm going to take over 66.5. Tennessee's up-tempo offense, Saban's success against these up-tempo teams. There's going to be a lot of points, and Tennessee is never, ever going to slow down. So I think that helps me get the over no matter what happens with this game.
Yeah, one thing that will work in Alabama's here, it doesn't look like star wide receiver Cedric Tillman will go for Tennessee. They still have potential earlier on draft picks at receiver, but if he was in there, it's a different story. This is a guy who's shown up in big games throughout his career. Last year against Alabama and Georgia, 17 catches, 350 yards, and 2 touchdowns in those 2 games. I think he had 10 catches and 200 yards against that historic Georgia defense. Should be a good one. Can't wait to see how it all plays out and how healthy Bryce Young is and will be. I'm assuming will matter a lot in that game. So keep an eye on that early on. All right, let's take a quick halftime break. Talk a little round robin underdog moneyline parlay. Five teams every week. Try to hit at least one of these a season. Collin, start us off with an anchor.
Yeah, we're going to go with BYU at home facing Arkansas in elevation. The Razorbacks are just reeling right now, especially on defense. We talk about it every week. They can't cover anybody. And Puka Nacua, Gunnar Romney, Jaron Hall. I mean, this is a passing attack that Arkansas is just not going to be able to deal with. So we're going to take BYU to start us off here. And don't worry, Razorback Nation, basketball season is right around the corner, and we're going to be the number 1 team in the nation.
I don't know about that. And Collin's backing Alabama, fading Arkansas again. Bobby Petrino still in his head. He's just abandoned ship ever since that game. I'm going to go, Collin, I'm going to go with your LSU Tigers here. On the road against Florida. I think this is a good bounce back spot. Was not impressed with Florida last week against Missouri. And unlike last week, LSU can really lean on its run game here. Florida's rush defense has been just poor all season long. And I think that's the biggest difference here. LSU's defensive line will have a major impact, take away the Richardson explosiveness. And he still having accuracy issues. Don't think he can take advantage of an LSU secondary that has some holes. So give me LSU on the road here. Collin, where are you going next?
Yeah, I'm going to take Kentucky, which is Stuckey's team. So Will Levis is back. And after watching Mississippi State struggle with Arkansas, especially on the ground last week, that tells me that Kentucky is going to have a lot of success here. The Bulldogs have just been atrocious on the road. That loss to LSU previously in Baton Rouge. BBN upsets today.
And don't worry, BBN, the real number one team in the country in college basketball, is starting soon. I'm gonna go with Michigan State here. Agree with everything you said before. Let's throw them in here as a home dog. I'll make Graham Mertz prove to me that he can have back-to-back good performances through the air. Collin, finish this up.
Yeah, let's finish it off with a action game. Let's go Bowling Green. They're getting 7 points at home. I think they win outright. It's a great spot for Bowling Green as we're going to get our beaks wet from action coming up here. Miami of Ohio has a new quarterback in Avion Smith, more of a runner, not a thrower. Bowling Green's going to be able to put some resistance on that. But more importantly, the offense for Bowling Green passes all the time. They pass more than just about anybody in the MAC. And Miami of Ohio is a terrible pass defense, good against the rush, but they're not very good in coverage and they're not very good against the pass. So Bowling Green at home, underdog spot to end our round robin here.
Yeah, this is the most top 20 matchups of undefeated teams since 1993. And half the show we spent talking about the MAC. You got to love it. But let's get into the second half of the show and we'll talk about one of those matchups of top 25 undefeated teams. This game is also at 3:30. Oklahoma State at TCU. TCU 4.5 point favorite over under 68.5. I'll kick things off here. I'm going to go with the Horned Frogs. I think that Oklahoma State's defense, which did get exposed last week, and if you looked at their metrics all season long, even against a poor schedule, everything they lost in the secondary, they lost their defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles. Their secondary was just getting shredded, and it got shredded again last week. They got a very fortunate win against Texas Tech, starting a freshman for the first time who was just throwing all over them. Like, they rank 100th in EPA per pass on defense. I think TCU's receivers will have a field day. Max Duggan's legs will be really critical here against the Oklahoma State pressure. Oklahoma State also came out of that game last week extremely banged up. There's even rumors that Spencer Sanders is banged up, and we'll see. He's questionable. I assume he's going to go, but give me TCU here. Collin, where are you going?
Yeah, I can see the reason for there's going to be a lot of points here. I mean, TCU is the most explosive team in college football. Oklahoma State is a speed racer at 21 seconds per play. And all signs do point to the over. But what happened in Lawrence last week when TCU only had 13 points total on the board between them and Kansas? Oklahoma State's going to be dialed in on their scripted plays from TCU, and they should have success generating stops and getting some turnovers here because the defense for the Pokes is 4th in line yards, 2nd in stuff rate. That means that they can stop some of this explosive ground attack of TCU. But more importantly, they're a top 10 team in defensive havoc. So there should be some turnovers involved here and not scores. And you know, when you look over the TCU side, like I said, there's flaws in this TCU defense, but they're 11th in tackling, and that's been instrumental in stopping explosive ground plays. And that'll be a part of the handicap here for the under 2. Now, can TCU stop long passes? No, but we're going to find out what the status is of Spencer Sanders. But at 68.5, I think we're about a touchdown too high here. I'll take the under in this game.
Brett, your TCU's treated you very well over the past few weeks. And then you have your alma mater, Oklahoma State. You got to pick a side, or are you going with the total?
Sophie's choice here. It's no secret I'm a proud Oklahoma State alum. Stuck, I'm sorry about some of the Cowboys harassing you on Twitter. I never thought it would mushroom out of control when I started that campaign. My apologies. Despite my allegiance to Oklahoma State, though, I will remain neutral. First, Oklahoma State mullet man Mike Gundy, 16-4 against the spread his last 20 as an underdog, 15-4 versus spread versus top 25 opponents. Yet Oklahoma State was very fortunate the last 2 weeks, getting outgained in wins against Texas Tech and Baylor. On the flip side, Stuck, you're right. Sonny Dykes and TCU have been pretty good to us all year. Horned Frogs, 4-0-1 versus spread. I am digging Max Duggan. So just because I'm a Cowboy doesn't mean I can't pick against Oklahoma State. I just won't do it this week. I'm going contrarian. I agree with Collin. I'm going under 68.5 points. Go Pokes. By the way, this is the half of my face that looks like when I don't put on makeup in the morning.
All right. Good stuff there. And yeah, Pokes Twitter. I think I tweeted out that they're a fraud, and I've just been getting Stuckey's a fraud. He's the biggest fraud on Twitter for about a week. So I'll see you at 3:30 Eastern. All right, let's finish up with our final marquee game. Let's go to prime time. Undefeated USC heads to Utah. Utah 3.5-point favorite here, over under 65, I think. Over's taking a little bit of money from the open. Odd at 3.5 and 65. I'm gonna pass. Utah will probably be in a round robin, which I will have out in the Action Network app after the show. But at 3.5, it's a pass for me. It's a great spot for Utah, though. I assume, Collin, you're gonna make a case for your beloved Utes.
Yeah, that's right. We're back on the Utes train here, and Utah is just built to attack USC where they're the most vulnerable, just like Oregon State did. There are a lot of similarities between what Oregon State did to USC and what Utah is going to do to them tonight. The Utes are excellent at attacking on the ground between the tackles. Now they got Tavian Thomas back. He's healthy. That's going to be a problem for the Trojans. Oregon State kept it on the ground, drained clock, moved the chains, weren't explosive. So long, methodical drives and keeping that USC offense off the field. The problem with the Beavers is they had too many penalties and they had 4 turnovers. Utah is 6th in the nation in havoc allowed. You say, what does that mean? On offense, they don't make mistakes. They don't throw interceptions. They don't get tackled behind the line of scrimmage. This is a very sound Utah offense that you can trust, not like Oregon State. So look for the Utes, who are the best team in standard downs on offense in the nation. They keep the chains moving at a higher rate than just about anybody to take care of a USC defense that is 112th in standard down success rate, which means they allow everybody to move the chains. So, the chains are going to keep moving for Utah. They're going to score enough. They're going to cover this spread. It's going to be wild in Rice Eccles tonight.
Yeah, you also could have a little potential turnover regression for USC coming. They have been extremely fortunate on that. And in that Oregon State game, which you failed to mention, is USC also recovered an improbable fumble at their own 1 that bounced like right into an offensive lineman's hands. If that bounces the other way, the result of that game could have been very different. Brett, where are you going here?
Yeah, Collin broke it down really well. Preach, Collin, preach. Also, I like Utah also for a couple other factors. This will be an incredibly emotional game for the Utes. They will honor Aaron Lowe and Ty Jordan, 2 Utes who passed away in the past 2 years. They've got hand-painted helmets honoring these 2 players. Really, really, it looks really, really amazing. Also, something struck me earlier this week that Kyle Whittingham said. I know I told you guys never to believe what coaches say, but sometimes they do speak the truth. He talked about this year's team reminded him of last year's team. Last year's team started with multiple losses, was coming off a road loss when they came back home, and suddenly everything clicked. They won their last 6 games on their way to the Pac-12 championship. He said, I can't remember exactly what their situation was record-wise, but it's very similar. Willingham also said this: I would be willing to bet a lot of money nobody goes through this conference undefeated. He said this a few days ago. I agree. And Kyle, I trust. Give me Utah -3.5, first loss for team transfer.
Brett, with the hard-hitting helmet handicap, usually that's Collin. Collin, you got any helmet insight from what's behind you on your wall?
The Utes helmet is on its way. I cannot believe my favorite team, I don't have a helmet. So I'm going to have to chuck out probably the Razorback or this Hawkeyes one back here and get a Utah helmet.
Yep. So it should be a really, really fun game. And Brett, what does the Pac-12 do better than any other conference? It cannibalizes itself. So it would be very on brand for every team to have a loss or 2 this year.
It starts today, Stuckey. Yeah.
All right. Good stuff there. Let's bring in the universally loved and my guy, Darren Ravel, for a quick market report. We're matching now. I feel better now. I got someone with
we're the casual crowd. Yeah.
Yeah, we got the casual break in the show. Darren, with a market report, what do you got for us?
Do you think because we're going with the Utes so much, I should do my entire market report as Marissa Tomei in My Cousin Vinny? Because the Utes.
No one wants. You want to sing the market report? Just no.
It could not have been the 1957 Pontiac Tempest because the 1957 Pontiac Tempest does not have rear positraction. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's get to what people want. The most bet games are kind of obvious. Tennessee, Bama, PSU, Michigan, and Kansas, Oklahoma. Also, the most bet teams by money and bets: Tennessee plus 8.5, Kansas plus 9, and Penn State plus 7. Now, quickly, I'm going to ask Collin or Stuckey to explain this because not everyone is as sharp. Not everyone's a bettor here. So, BetMGM has taken a $110,000 bet on Kansas plus 9. They are telling us that Kansas plus 9 is the second most bet by bets and money. And yet, during our show, Kansas has now gone to plus 10 at BetMGM. Can someone explain?
I mean, that just that I mean, that would just mean that there's sharper money on Oklahoma. There's also probably more confidence that Dylan Gabriel is going to go for Oklahoma. But even if there's a lopsided amount of money on one side, if you take a $110,000 bet from a fish, doesn't really matter. And then your sharper accounts are on Oklahoma, you're going to potentially move the spread the other way. And common myth that books want 50-50 action on both sides, which
not
just
true.
isn't true.
Okay, let me get you that's a good. I just wanted for people to explain that. And finally, the totals. I know that we've had both. I think Collin and Brett both just had the Oklahoma State TCU game as an under. 87% of the money, the most lopsided total at BetMGM, is on 68.5. The over on TCU Oklahoma State. Then we have, I can't even read my handwriting. The Kentucky game, 84% on the over on 50.5, Mississippi State, Kentucky. And the lowest under of the day, or the lowest total of the day, people just love those Big Ten unders. And after last week was last week Illinois, Iowa. That was whenever that was.
9-6.
That was gross. Minnesota, Illinois, 69% of the money is on the under on 39.5. And I'm reminding you that Big Bets on Campus is brought to you by BetMGM. Use the bonus code ACTION. And when signing up, you'll get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. Terms and conditions apply. Have a great day, guys.
Yep. Yeah. Brett, do you have one fade for us, Darren? What's your favorite bet?
My favorite bet is, let me look on my Action Network app and see what my biggest money. It's Vandy plus 24 in the first half. Georgia has not covered the last three first halves, so that's my favorite bet by money.
All right, I think you're 0-6 on this show, so maybe you're due.
It wasn't Georgia winning 50 at halftime against Vanderbilt last year. I
don't look at last year. All right, good stuff. Thanks, Darren. And in regards to that Kansas Oklahoma game, those market also move in unison, so there could be sharp action elsewhere. But we have one final order of business to get to, and that's one final best bet. I should just do Georgia first half, but I'm going to go with Oklahoma here. Dylan Gabriel back. It is just, he might be worth 14 points after what we saw from Bevel the past few weeks, but just a great bounce back spot for Oklahoma. Kansas, people forget Kansas' defense is still one of the worst in Power 5. Backup quarterback going for them. Oklahoma, they just want to take out their frustrations here, and I think this is the spot to do it. So I think Oklahoma wins this game by double digits. Collin, one final bet.
Yeah, NC State Syracuse over 42. NC State quarterback Devin Leary left in a sling against Florida State. But the Wolfpack were able to run successfully with former triple option quarterback Jack Chambers after Devin Leary was hurt. So if the Syracuse defense has been subpar against the run, they're 100th in stuff rate, meaning the Orange don't stop anything at the point of attack at the line of scrimmage. And listen, there's no doubt that Syracuse is going to have some ground explosiveness of themselves for how great the NC State defense is and how much we give them love on the podcast. They do give up explosive runs, and that means Sean Tucker for Syracuse is going to have a couple of scoring plays. So, it's going to be a grind of a game, but at the same time, everything points to this being a ground game and being a lot of success and some explosiveness. I'll go over 42.
Brett?
I just have one request. Can Darren do next week's picks as Joe Pesci? I'm taking Georgia Southern plus 12.5 against James Madison. Imagine playing for James Madison. On Sunday, the Dukes become the first team ever to be ranked in the AP top 25, the first year making the transition from FCS to FBS. And now all you're getting asked about is how unfair it is that you can't go to a bowl game this year. You're ineligible for the Sun Belt Championship, yet you're ranked in the top 25. These are heady times for the kids at James Madison. Now they're nearly a 2-touchdown favorite at Georgia Southern. Look, I admit this pick smells worse than what SMU's pony mascot left on the field last night, but I will hold my nose and take the Eagles and Clay Helton plus 12.5.
All right, there you have it. Yeah, hopefully our picks go better than what was that 10-minute poop delay that we saw at SMU. But that'll do it for us. Thanks, as always, to Collin and Brett and Darren Ravel and to our team on the back end. Make sure that you download the award-winning Action Network app for all of our picks. Thanks again to our sponsor, BetMGM. And make sure you check out Big Bets on Campus podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, we'll have a recap of the weekend. That's out Monday morning. Call on the voicemail 959-BAD-BEAT. And we'll hear from you then. A couple more episodes next week. But enjoy the slate. Should be a great day. Good luck on all of your wagers. We'll catch you same time next week, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Cheers.